Welcome to the podcast, Sari Kimbell. So thankful that you are here today and that you agreed to be a guest on my show. So welcome.
Thank you. Oh, it's my pleasure to be here, Peggy.
Great, great. So I just want to start off by just sharing with my listeners a little bit about you, and we'll just dive into some questions because it's going to be a fun conversation today. So Sari Kimbell is a reinvention coach, helping clients to create a more fulfilled, authentic, and fun life that aligns with a thriving business. Whether it is starting, scaling, or exiting a business, she has helped hundreds of entrepreneurs step into their role of CEO to create systems, structures, and standards to help them serve their customers, get the most out of the team to amplify their vision, and actually be able to take time off, trusting that their business is working without them. That is amazing and sounds amazing. Sari also pulls from her vast toolkit to help entrepreneurs create a profitable and sustainable business, including her 4 years at Whole Foods Market as buyer, regional brand support manager and marketing director, 6 years running a 6-figure online business, helping hundreds of entrepreneurs called Food Business Success, and 3 years as a certified life coach, helping clients achieve the future they desire. Sari is the host of Reinvent podcast, so check that out. We'll put that in the show notes. She also took Dr. Benjamin Hardy's exponential psychology course based on his and Dan Sullivan's book, 10X is Easier Than 2X, which I also took, and I was so blown away by it. So I'm sure we'll have a little bit of conversation around that as well. But to start us off, the curious thing I have is, what is a reinvention coach? And why do people work with you?
I know there was a lot to unpack there. And you can maybe tell by the vast experiences. I've had a few reinventions
Yes, yes.
myself, a number of them, both personal and in my career. And I just love the idea of what a reinvention means, in that it's a new identity. It's oftentimes stepping into, hopefully it's a positive reinvention, something that you want to change, you want to become. And so it very much is along the lines of becoming your future self, right? Another book by Benjamin Hardy of here's where I want to go. Here's what I want to be. Maybe it's in a career, maybe it's starting a business, maybe it's getting married or getting divorced, or all these different transition points in our lives. And how do I've had some reinventions where I've blown up my life, right? And I don't think that's necessary. We can keep a good part of our lives, but there is that change, right? It's the caterpillar that goes into the chrysalis, and it's messy and it's messy work. But on the other side, emerges this beautiful butterfly. So I really help people through that process and try to help make it a little less messy.
But at the end, they turn out to be these their life is beautiful, right? That's what the whole transition and that reinvention really is to making ourselves better. That's awesome.
And it never really stops. I mean, truthfully, I'm going through mini reinventions all the time, but oftentimes we probably go through a couple of big reinventions in our lives as we become more self-aware and really, I think I'm 48 and I tend to work with people more in their 40s or early 50s, where you're starting to question, what am I doing here? I work with high achievers. I'm a recovering high achiever myself. I checked all the boxes. I got all the gold stars. And why am I still feeling, less than satisfied and feeling unfulfilled? And I think as you head into the back half, the back 9 of your life, you start to ask those questions. So
yeah, I think really a lot of people do kind of, if you would call it your midlife, hopefully it's not a crisis. Hopefully you can work through people, work with and through those times where they're just like, why, what am I doing? What's my purpose? Is there something more? And I think a lot of us do have that drive of there's something more out there. And because they don't like to settle. I don't, maybe we're just both really high achievers, and that's just where we're at, is that, oh, there's always more. There's always more. Like, we get to the top of the mountain, there's a bigger mountain,
I
and
don't think it's just us. I think
okay.
I think we're socialized that way. Many of us are high achievers, especially entrepreneurs are,
Mhm.
and we're sold a lie that if we get all the things, we get
Mhm.
all the boxes, we get the house, we get the car, we get the marriage, the family, the boat, on and on and on, that will finally fill up our cup and be happy,
Mhm.
and meaning and fulfillment come from a completely different place than the
Right.
outside stuff.
Right. Right. Oh my gosh, there's so many different directions we can go, but let's what were some of your pivotal points? I mean, you talked about your life, you've checked all those boxes and you've lived a lot of this so you can really help your clients. But what were some of the pivotal points in your life that kind of led you to become the person you are today?
Yeah. Well, I had a very big reinvention, 39 and a half. So, um, that year that is when I kind of blew up my life, so to speak, I got a divorce, I moved in with my stepmom, I turned 40. So what? So lots of things, like all my identities of being a wife and a homeowner and a dog owner and all these things. And then I was working for Whole Foods Market. And then that fall there was a layoff. So they did a nationwide layoff. So I was like, wow, I really have no identities. Like blank slate. And I do not have kids, so I did not have that as an identity. But I really, as messy as it was, and it was a rough couple of years of a lot of suffering, and that's really my purpose, is like, how do I help people go through that process and suffer less?
Mm.
Because there was a
Mhm.
lot of self-loathing, there was a lot of self-judgment and criticism and unworthiness stuff and all of it.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
that was several years of going through it and trying to like find the rope and the vines that's going to get me out of it. And I don't think it needs to take that long with
Mhm.
with the tools of life coaching and all of the other things that I bring to the table. So um yeah, that was probably one of my most recent or somewhat recent reinventions, but I ended up starting a business that next year. Never been an entrepreneur before, always never thought I would have been. It's like, no,
Never say
thank
never.
you.
Never say never. I have learned that lesson over and over and over in my life.
Yeah.
Never say never. It
It's
always
like,
comes back to me.
I thought, just have a good job, have a career, have retirement, all the things. And oh my gosh, I feel like starting a business or having kids have to be like the two top things where you just, so much is out of your control. I mean, a business is another form of a baby, and you have to give it so much love and care, and yet you're so vulnerable and putting yourself out there. And so um yeah, that was a big reinvention for me, to go through all of that and then step into entrepreneurship.
Mhm.
And this year, and the group that we did for 10X was so timely, because
Mhm.
I built, a big business, built multiple six-figure business over 5 years, and been doing really well, helping people start packaged food businesses. And I loved it, but I also was just like, I am exhausted. I am burnt out. I am going, going, going and hustle and trying to prove to everybody that I'm a good enough entrepreneur and all
Mhm.
the things, and growth for growth's sake. And I just thought, I don't know, towards the end of last year, I just said, I'm done. It's time for something different. I want a
Mhm.
reinvention of not necessarily like making more money or a bigger house or anything like that, but like a reinvention of my well-being, and
Mhm.
like how I still want to be an entrepreneur, but I want to change my relationship with my business and have it slow down a little bit more.
Yeah, we can just get into that whirlwind of that, just go, go, go with a business. And you're like, yeah, it is like having a baby, especially in the first few years where
Yeah,
it's
it's helpless.
it's and you have to do everything for it in order for make it
Yeah.
grow. And it just seems so hard. But hopefully it survives. And then, but you find out, like you did, like, I don't want to do all of this any longer, not the rat race, not the run, run, run. I want something else, maybe a little more slow time.
Yes, slow down, the
So
white space that
yes,
that
the
we
white
talked about.
space,
Yeah.
that we all, I think entrepreneurs in particular struggle with that. Just on the go all the time. So you mentioned a couple things,
Yeah.
you're throwing out these ideas, which if anybody hasn't read the book, 10x is easier than 2x, might not have heard, like the white space, the slow down time, the future me, that's another book. So, you've gone through this course with him and this book, 10x is easier than 2x. What are some of your biggest ahas or takeaways from that course and the book that now is 3, 10, almost 10 months in, 9 months for sure, into, this new year that you started this course with? Now, what has changed? What are your
Yeah.
ahas and what are you moving forward with?
Oh my gosh. I think, one of the big ones was letting go of the 80% or raising your standards. And I'll just share openly that for a lot of my adult life, 30s, and then certainly in my 40s, starting the business, I really struggled with over drinking and using that as a coping mechanism. But like there was a bad cycle of um, celebrating when things went well, over drinking, then feeling terrible the next day, beating myself up, and then like trying to get motivated again, right?
Mhm,
And the self-loathing and everything that kicked in. So over the last few years, I've definitely really started to cut back and do that in a way that felt very empowering and felt good. And with 10 with the program and talking about the 80% that you need to let go of to be the next version of,
mhm,
your 10x, go after that 10x goal, I realized that, my relationship with alcohol really needed to fundamentally change, make it an even bigger, like a new standard for that.
mhm, mhm.
And so it's not that I've completely quit drinking altogether, but it is that time period really helped change my relationship, um, and to like going out and going to events and not even caring. And I was like, who am I? Normally I'd be like, that first thing when you walk in that networking
You-
event is like, where's the bar? Right.
Yeah,
And now
yeah.
I was like, oh, I'm good. I just want to engage with people. I don't even want a drink. Right. And it was
Mhm.
like such a change for
Well,
me
you reinvented
fundamentally.
yourself in that aspect, didn't you?
Yeah. Now
That's
I'm waking up more, I'm sleeping better and I'm waking up more excited. And, it's like the spiraling up versus the
Mhm,
spiraling down. So I think really looking at some of those pieces that when I think about what kind of CEO, what kind of entrepreneur, what kind of woman I want to be, there was a couple of those things similar to the alcohol of like, I just need to let those things go. I need to raise my standards. So that was a big one. And then I really loved the whole concept of impossible unless, right? And
mhm,
Dr. Alan Bernard
mhm.
talked about that, and his little private group call was so good. And I use that a lot with my clients and in my courses. It's like help people dream bigger, right? And I think that's part of
Right.
reinvention is people dream so small
Mhm,
because we don't want to be disappointed. We only want to like dream as big as we think that we are capable of, and it's usually pretty small. So that's one of the
you're
things I
right.
really help clients do is dream bigger and like, okay, well, what else? What would, helping them see like it could be and like it's not this or that. It could be
Mhm,
this and like
mhm.
what if it's bigger, right? And really
Yeah.
helping them
That
do
is
it.
one of my favorite questions too. And it's just that possibility thinking of stepping outside what we normally put ourselves in a box with,
Yeah.
like, which is which is what we know. But what if we went bigger, like you said, like dream bigger? What is that impossible thing that I always say, like, we just laugh at and just brush off because that just seems
Right.
so crazy, right? And step into that. Like, what would really that be like? And so
Yeah.
you use that a lot with your clients. That's awesome because I use that a lot in my thinking and my clients as well, is just getting them outside that box to think bigger. I mean, it's kind of like being, I have some kids, so like their imaginations are go wild. And so it's a kind of like tapping into that, opening that door for
Yeah.
adults to be able to stretch your mind and that imagination.
Right.
So
Because we shut it down, it's like you get through your 20s. I mean, in your late teens, early 20s, everything's just possibility. It's like you could do anything. And then it's like we systematically just shut all of that down in our 30s. And so I love helping people just reimagine. And I
mhm,
use that same question for me. I have a membership, and I said my goal at the beginning of the year was 200 members, new
mhm.
members. And so using the, 10x, like, okay, 2,000 members. Okay, like it's impossible unless. And it really got me thinking about, well, what, I would need to pull bigger levers. I couldn't
Mhm.
just do like a one, one here, one there, one there. And so it got me thinking about how can I leverage some larger groups? And I wrote a book this year, and as part of my 10x goal. And so I started sending my book to different groups and saying, give this away for free. And I want this to be a resource to people. And so starting to align myself with some other organizations that could help, grow that much faster than just like one here, one here, one here. Right.
Right.
So it's such a
It just
great
opens our door
experiment.
to different thinking, doesn't it? Just like if you're just to do 200, that, feels kind of safe and you can do these things and it would probably get you to 200. But if you want 2000, man, like you said, it pulls different levers. Like you really have to think a little differently and bigger. Like where are those people?
Right.
So
How
the
can I
bigger
reach
groups.
more of them faster?
Oh, how can I reach them faster? And that just do. What is the name of your book?
It's called Key Ingredients, and it's
Okay.
about starting a packaged food business. So self-published that, wrote that in, actually, it was over the time that we were in the course with Dr.
Nice.
Hardy. So I guess I started in March and finished it in early June. So it's
Nice.
9
Nice.
months.
Well, great. We'll make sure we put that in the show notes as well. So if anybody wants to check that out, that sounds
Yeah,
interesting. That's for
appreciate it.
sure with your background in the food business. That's great. That's great.
Yes.
So what would be some of your tips or tools or tricks for people to like wanting to do their first steps to reinvent themselves without, like you said, mentioned to me, burning the whole house down?
Right.
No. Okay. Well, that sounds like a little extreme, but
Right.
maybe that ties into like you don't have to make it really messy. I don't know. You tell me, what are the first steps to reinvent ourselves without burning the whole house down?
Right. I always love to give my clients, when I first start working with them, I call it the lawn exercise, but it's kind of imagine your whole house is in, or your whole life is in a house, right? And all of the obligations, your roles, your job, the relationships, like all of it's in there. And just kind of brainstorming, imagine you were like, how you had to unpack the whole house and put it on the lawn. All the furniture, all the clothes, all the dishes, all of it, right? And and then you have to like purposely decide, do I love it? Does it go back in as is? Is there anything that I've we get on autopilot, right? We're
Mhm.
on
Yeah.
autopilot, I mean, 90% of the time. So there's things that we do that when you actually look at them and you're like, why do I do that? That's like nobody cares. I don't care, but I just got into a habit of doing it. So Really looking, whatever comes up, of course, you're not gonna be able to document your entire life, but whatever comes up on that piece of paper, I like to tell people, set a timer for 10 minutes or 15 minutes, because your brain loves to tell you, like, this is gonna take forever.
Oh, yes. And then we dread it and we put it
And then we don't
off
do
and,
it. But set a timer for 10 minutes and just get it out. Like, well, everything in your life. I am a member of this organization, and I go to church at this church, and I'm in this relationship, and I'm this person. And it can be anything. It could be, your eating habits or your workout or anything. So you put it all on the paper, and then see what you definitely want to put back in the house. See if there's things that you're like, it's kind of part of your 80% that you're like,
Yeah.
this is not serving me. This is dumb. Like, what a waste of time. Get rid of that. And then you're going to have those things that you're like, I don't want to get rid of that. Like, for me, what came up for me was my sister was on that list. Like, I'm not going to stop being a sister, but I was like, that can't go back into the house as is.
Have
Like,
to reinvent that relationship a little bit, maybe.
yeah, exactly. There's something that I need to address here. Like, I don't want to, the way we're engaging, I don't want to put that relationship in the house as is. So that can just kind of start to shine a light on, what's maybe like, get rid of completely, free up some of your headspace. But then what are some things that you're like, oh, these are the areas that I think I need to do a little reinvention, that I want to show up differently. And it doesn't mean you have to do it overnight. Like, there's a group that a nonprofit I manage and I'm the president of. And it's one of those things, like, I look at it every quarter or so and I'm like, I'm not going to stay there beyond my term, but I am going to complete it because that feels good to me to follow through on my commitment. But I'm looking forward to the day when I can leave it out of the house.
Well, you know what? We all change, right? If you've been in a house or apartment, a living space for some time, it's amazing what accumulates.
Yeah.
And that's a really cool exercise of like picking apart, like dumping all of your life out on the lawn. And
Yes.
oh my, that is an eye opener. I'm just imagining, like, I've been in this house for probably 17 years and
Right.
holy buckets. I mean, there's a lot of stuff here that probably doesn't need to be here. So I'm thinking, okay, yeah, let's just, take it all out, sit it on the lawn. It might look like a junk sale, but
Right.
and then thinking about really what's really important,
Yeah.
and why is it important? Then there's some things that are treasures, it can be a relationship with somebody, but it might need to change. Like you said, like you had your one with your sister, there might be stuff that you can just give away for free. I don't need it anymore.
Right. You can
Right.
give it to somebody else to
Give it to
use
somebody
and
else.
they'll
Or
be
there
excited.
might be some things that you kind of refurbish,
Mhm.
reinvent into something that's more useful, to you. So that could be any part of our lives that we can really hone in. And that just really makes, it's just an eye-opening experience, I think. That's a good
Mhm.
exercise to be able to start out with. That's
Yeah.
great. That's great. Any other tools that you want to, like, tips or to throw out at us to get us jump started
Um,
and reinventing ourselves?
yeah. The other thing you can do is, and he talks about this in the book, but looking backwards and saying, what are the 10x jumps that I've already made in my life? Which I love that, of like, where are all these pivot points that I become kind of a new version of myself? And that was probably never in the plan in your teens or 20s,
Oh,
right?
yeah, I
And now
don't
you
think we
can
could write the script, right, of what our life
right.
is now.
But I also love the playing with possibility in the future. So again, I think we get into a habit of like, oh, this is my life and this is what I'm always going to be doing. This is how I'll always be feeling, and this is where I'll always be living, and this is what I'll always be eating, and the preferences and all of that. And we just think that's how it's going to go forever. And it's really fun to play around with possibility of just kind of that daydreaming, imagining of like, what are 10 other possibilities for my life? that I I could want, right? Doesn't mean I'm going to do any of them. Like, I think
Mhm.
we get scared if we open up the door and look at it, that then we got to do it. And that's just not the case. But like, I could go become a Buddhist monk.
Mhm.
It's possible. I totally could. Or, right, I could
Yeah,
go and
it could
get
be
a
anything.
real job and go and, work for a company and have regular hours and all of that. I don't have to be an entrepreneur, or
Mhm.
I could go get married, or I could go adopt kids, or I could, like, just
Mhm.
playing around. Like, I could go live in another country
Yeah, yeah,
and work virtually. I work virtually anyway, so it really
right.
is possible. Um, so just, I think it's really fun to just play around with possibility, letting go of any judgment of what comes up. And I think letting go of, like, sometimes we're worried that if I think about it, then all of a sudden, yeah, I'm going to feel like I'm missing out on something, or now I'm going to want to do this. And I'm,
Mhm.
to be a Buddhist monk, that might really radically change my life and my
Right.
relationships with people. But it's kind of fun to just, again, look at possibility. Like, oh, I never
Yeah.
thought I could actually, oh, there's like a piece of that that I really like. And how
Mhm.
could I bring that into my life now?
Yeah, I mean, I just think of like, oh, what if? I use the term, like the question, what if? Like, what if, you went and did this? It's not like like you said, it's not like you open the door and you have to do it. You have to walk through it. But it brings that playful mindset and that imagination through. Is there an aspect of that that you really like? You know,
Hmm.
what would be so intriguing about being a Buddhist monk? Maybe I'm off and, by myself and I'm okay, and I can spend some solitude time or, sometimes these ideas, these what if things, I feel like that comes out and we're quick to slam the door because we're like, oh no,
Yeah,
so like that's so not me, but I think that our brains open up those ideas for us to capture certain things about it, you know,
exactly.
just pulling little things like what is it about, you know, working what what some people call a real job, 9 to 5, some people call a real job entrepreneurs, who knows, whatever you're doing, maybe it's a 9 to 5 or, where you don't have to bring home or be home in your workspace all the time. Like, why is that? People are working virtually. Why do they want to go back to the office? Or so it's just so fun to think. And
Yeah.
and just,
Question.
you have to let go, like you said, let go of the judgment and let go that just because your brain thought about it doesn't mean you have to do it. I get caught in that sometimes.
Yeah,
I'm like, oh, I thought about, oh, that's a great idea. That's a great idea.
right.
Go do it because I thought of it. Right. But not necessarily.
Right. Parking lot. I have everybody have a parking lot list. Like, put it,
Ah,
if it seemed like
yeah.
a good idea, put it in the parking lot. You can revisit it later, see how you feel about it in a week or a month, or oftentimes we revisit those things and we're like, what was I thinking?
Thank you. Exactly. And I think, that's good advice for a lot of areas in our life. I'm thinking about shopping, those
Yes.
impulse buying, just put that on the parking lot list, of and revisit. And like you said, you get back to it and you're like, what was I thinking? Like,
Right.
what was I going to use that for? I mean, I've bought ingredients like that before. Like I read a recipe, and I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna make this recipe
And now
and
I
I
have
buy these
sumac. What the
ingredients.
heck do I do with this?
And I'm like, what recipe was I gonna make with this?
Right. It seemed like such a good idea at the
But it's not.
time.
Not always. So, oh my gosh, this has been a wonderful, wonderful conversation. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with the listeners about either what you do, what you've learned, your book, your podcast, before we
Oh my
wrap?
gosh. Yeah. I think, I mean, the biggest thing I can tell people is just, I just want people to know, like, they are worthy, they are enough exactly as they are. And we can stop striving, right? The striver's curse. And that there is, I mean, if I can do it, if I can feel this much like ease and well-being after, what I where I was, it is
Mhm.
possible for anybody to find this. And there's something so, I mean, I just absolutely love my life. And it doesn't mean that bad stuff doesn't happen. It doesn't mean I don't
Mhm.
have hard days or, have days of anxiety or self-judgment, but the tools of self-compassion and just the well-being as I've focused more on fulfillment over achievement and the belief that yeah, I'm good enough. I'm enough. I'm worthy.
Mhm.
And I just
Yes.
want everybody listening to know that that is possible for them. It is possible to live a more fulfilling life right now, not not someday, not when you make enough money, when you do this, when you get the
Mhm.
promotion, but now. And
Yeah,
it starts now. And it doesn't happen overnight. It's a layering on process.
that's true. The worthiness starts, within us, and we have to grow it. It's not something, yeah, we can have it one day. We feel like, hey, I'm enough today. And the next day or the next hour, it might fall to pieces. But we have to keep building layers onto each other until we, truly, truly have it to our core. And I don't know, have you seen Jamie Kern Lima's new book is going to come out called Worthy
Oh,
in
wow.
February.
Okay.
So I
Check
just
that
saw
out.
some stuff on that. And as you're talking, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's like kind of what's in the book and like teaching us how, and some of those lies about our
Yeah.
self-worth, like, waiting around until we're ready or those kind of things. So yeah, I just because I love books and I love
Yes, I'll have to check that out.
no, it
Something
doesn't
to
come
look
out until
forward to in
February, but I
February.
think she's been talking about it on some of her YouTube channel. So, but that's great. That's great. Where can people find out more about you? I know you have the Reinvent podcast, so that's one
Yes.
place.
So yep, that's Reinvent podcast on all the places, and then Sari Kimbell Coaching is the Instagram. Um, I did recently do a More Than Survive, Thrive training, all about increasing our resilience and anti-fragility.
Mhm.
So you can get that on the website as well, sarikimbellcoaching.com. And then, yeah, for people who maybe are thinking about reinventing themselves into an entrepreneur and turning their food product into a packaged product, selling at farmers markets or
Hmm.
online or in grocery stores, then everything is over at Food Business Success. So
Awesome.
podcast, YouTube, Instagram,
All
all the
those
places.
channels, all
Yes.
those normal channels we go to. So great. I will put those in the show notes for anybody that wants more information about it. But thank you so much, Sari,
Oh, it's
for
been a pleasure.
joining me today. You just enlightened. It's been a fun conversation.
Appreciate. Thank you for having me.